Hello everyone. My name is Pastor Dar Rath, and I'm the pastor at Faith Lutheran Church in Port Elgin. Today you will just be watching the sermon. Due to some technical difficulties, we're just able to bring you the sermon for this week's service. And this sermon is going to be recorded, and it will be placed on YouTube and on Facebook. This is an unusual sermon in that I'm going to be showing slides throughout that show the rules for whitewater rafting. That's quite unique. And so let's begin. How many of you have been whitewater rafting? Aha. Many of the people who live in this area have been whitewater rafting in the Ottawa River, and so they've had lots of fun in that particular area. I was whitewater rafting in Alaska, and boy, there were lots of adrenaline. It was in June, and the glaciers were just melting, and so the water was really, really high. As a matter of fact, they shut down the run the day after we were there, so they were pretty scary times on this ride. And halfway through, I wondered what on earth I was doing and why I felt I had the need to do this, but it was quite an experience. Now, our bishop showed these slides during a presentation to those of us who are newly ordained pastors. There's a 3-year compulsory course that we have to take, and I love the concept of these slides. And as he was speaking about it, he was talking about the church as a whole and about pastors. And as he was speaking, I was thinking that it was really almost about life as well. And so follow me along on this ride on the whitewater rafting. These are the actual rules that are for the whitewater rafting on the Colorado River. I hope you enjoy the ride. So the first slide says, the first rule is don't be surprised if the boat doesn't go where you want it to go. Well, we're a community of faith on a voyage together. All of us have paddles, and sometimes we paddle together, and maybe sometimes not. At the moment, there's something really exciting happening here in this particular church. We can feel the joy, the love, the caring for each other, the spirit of worship returning after being isolated for so long. There are new people arriving here and being welcomed by the members. In our personal lives, sometimes things just don't go always the way that we planned. Isn't that the truth? How many of you have an extra child that you didn't plan for? And you may have moved to an area where you never imagined you would ever move. The second rule is rest in the calm places. There will be more whitewater soon. We feel a presence in this church that is calm. What we're doing here is gentle and easy. Different expressions of a church are characterized by varying levels of intensity, and there is no tension here in this church. We know in life that it doesn't always remain smooth, so we need to appreciate the calm times and rest in the calm places. Rule number 3, never stop paddling, even when it seems hopeless. What we are experiencing here in this church is loud and clear. We have a spirit of determination and commitment to life of this church. Regardless of the COVID circumstances or rules, we need to keep plugging. We need to keep fulfilling our ministries and doing the very, very best we can at this time and in this place. We need to keep paddling. Remember, everyone has a paddle. Now, in our personal lives, we do face challenges from time to time. Nobody gets out of this life without having some challenges. Sometimes they are major ones that we couldn't have even imagined. Maybe we need to reach out for expert resources and ask for some help. But we need to keep going and don't give up. Rule number 4, if you get into trouble, don't panic. When you are in rough water, you need to keep your head, stay cool, combat anxiety, and make good decisions aren't usually made when people are anxious or panicky. Now, this is really easy to say, but always difficult to do. But everyone has their own strategies to deal with stress and anxiety. There's a long list, from biking to reading to meditating to talking to a friend to sharing your anxiety with your family. And don't forget, prayer. Rule number 5. If you go under, let go of everything. Eventually, you will come back up. Archbishop Tom Morgan said that in the end of it all, if you lose everything, all you need is a book, a loaf, a cup, and then we're back in business. He said, we will most certainly come back up. Now, there are times in our lives and occasions when we feel that we are totally under. For example, people who've had their house burned down, or if there's a serious illness or an unexpected death. And what about the Ukraine refugees? I want to share a personal story. When our children were 3 and 18 months old, we went on a camping trip to Lake Placid. Now, something happened with the water and the meat and with the cooler, but 2 days after we arrived home, our youngest boy, David, and my husband, Merle, were admitted to hospital with typhoid fever. They were isolated and they were very sick. Our other son and I tested negative. But as a nurse working in the emergency department, I wasn't allowed to go to work. I was only allowed to go to the grocery store. Otherwise, I was quarantined. And I was allowed to go to the hospital to see my son and my husband. Public health were scrambling to give me advice. All people who had come in contact with us in those 2 days had to give 3 stool samples to the public health. Our young babysitter had 8 brothers and sisters, and her father worked at the meat plant, so he was not allowed to work. But can you imagine the shelves of all these stool bottles with stool in them from 8 children and 2 adults? It was awful. It was really awful for these folks. And also, the people that worked with Merle were at DeFasco were recommended to go to their family doctor, and some of them ended up having shots for typhoid, and some of them ended up just giving stool samples. So when David and Merle came home from the hospital, they were isolated in our home with paper plates, and I was washing everything with Javex everywhere. Does that sound familiar? It sounds somewhat like what we went through with COVID. But I'm talking 50 years ago. My son Bob is now 53. And so this was 50 years ago. They had no clue about isolating people in the home. Now, this isolation went on for 3 months, and all 4 of us were testing every 4th day. And it was really a nightmare. And finally, David tested negative. I went to the bank that day to withdraw the remainder of our savings. We had no more money, $22.35. I had to take that out to get groceries. And that day, I felt like we were under. We had a mortgage. I hadn't been able to work for 3 months. Neither was Merle. It was really a very poopy time, might I say. But here's the bottom line. We had each other. We had our faith. My husband and my son were going to be all right. And we had to just let go and trust and keep on paddling. The 6th rule, I love this rule. Someone needs to call out the orders. It works better that way. There has to be a system for piloting the boat. We need to respect the rules that have been set to govern our life together and to help us engage in difficult issues. We need to trust one another, honor our ways, and have a way to answer our questions that may be addressed. In our case, it is our church council and the congregation, as well as guidelines from a bishop's office, especially during the COVID shutdowns. In our personal lives, well, there's always someone who wears the white gloves and carries the whistle. Someone has to direct traffic, especially in a home with children. It's when it's really, really busy. You really need to know who's going where. White water is what you came for. Enjoy it. Post-COVID, there are a lot of really good things happening here in this church. The spirit of love and joy is here. People are coming to visit. We need to invite others to come and enjoy it with us. The only thing I can say is that I'm so glad that I've made it this far. I absolutely love being a pastor here, and I enjoy it. Rule number 8. This is the last rule. Everyone paddles furiously to get somewhere, but ultimately it is the current that takes you downstream. You know, folks, sometimes we just have to take a breath and go with the flow and enjoy each day as best we can. Enjoy the ride. God bless everyone. Amen. Amen.